Chrisean, girl. Honey, y'all better strap in, lock the door, and pour something strong, because what I am about to walk y'all through is the sickest, filthiest, most stomach-turning chapter of the Blueface saga we have ever seen, and I do not say that lightly. Baby, I have covered every arrest, every leak, every tattoo, every tear of this circus, and I promise you, nothing has ever come close to what these two just cooked up together this week. This is not messy. This is diabolical. This is the kind of low that makes you close your laptop, sit in silence for a full minute, and then open it right back up to make sure your eyes were not playing tricks on you. Spoiler, they were not. Because listen, if y'all thought the face tattoos were the peak of this delusion, if y'all thought the jail live streams were the peak, if y'all thought the pregnancy and punching bag era was the peak, oh honey, Blueface just kicked the ceiling clean off. He went on camera, grinning like a Cheshire cat, and told the whole internet that his little fiancée has officially been upgraded, and I quote loosely, from side girl to house girl. That was the promotion. That was the ceremony. That was the ring. Baby, a curfew is not a proposal. A curfew is a parole condition. And Chrisean was sitting there beaming like she just won Miss Universe. Y'all, I nearly dropped my cup. Now, before I get into the tattoo demand, before I get into what he did to Jaidyn, before I get into the receipts about that leaked tape, before I get into what Kalisa allegedly heard on that hospital phone call, I need y'all to understand the size of what we are dealing with. This is not a couple. This is a case study. This is what happens when two people with zero home training, zero boundaries, and zero self-respect find each other in a studio and decide the rest of us have to watch. So today, I am reading this thing for filth. Every receipt, every lie, every red flag she skipped past like a hopscotch square. Grab your tea. Say your prayers. Anywho, let's get into it. So the video that lit the fuse this week was that sit-down interview those two did where they were playing house, playing pregnant fiancés, playing the whole domestic fantasy on camera. And in the middle of that clown parade, Blueface leans back, folds his arms, and announces that he has decided to graduate her from what he literally called host status to what he literally called girlfriend status. His exact words. And Chrisean, instead of slapping the black off his teeth, smiled. She smiled so wide her cheeks touched her earrings. Baby, he did not offer her exclusivity. He did not offer her loyalty. He did not offer her a title, a promise, or even a used gift card. He offered her a bedtime, and she cashed it like it was a bonus check. Now y'all pause. Rewind that. Because the words he used matter. He did not say, I am going to stop cheating. He did not say, I am going to cut off all these other women. He did not say, you will be the only one. He said, and I want y'all to hear this slow, your man will be coming home every night. That is it. That is the whole promotion. He literally told the entire internet, I will still be out here doing whatever, with whoever, wherever, however, but at some hour, I will walk through that door, drop my keys, and sleep in your bed. That is not a boyfriend. That is a tenant with benefits. And Chrisean was giggling like he just built her a castle. Sweetheart, if that is winning, you have already lost the game before the buzzer. And I know, some of y'all are going to say, well, Kiki, at least he is saying something. No, sugar. Do not lower the bar so far into the ground that a worm could trip over it. This is exactly the trap. This is exactly why so many young women are out here bleeding out emotionally, financially, spiritually, and they think it is love. It is not love. It is a lease agreement with no signature. And Blueface, that skinny, greasy, permanent side of having, forever broke with itching on credit-looking man, has been running this same play his entire career. He ran it on Jaidyn. He ran it on Chrisean. He ran it on Jaidyn again. And now he is running it on both of them at the same time, in public, for clicks, and Chrisean is helping him. But wait, honey, we have not even gotten to the tattoo. Because in the middle of that same interview, this man had the unmitigated gall to suggest, in what he played off as a joke, but was clearly a live audition, that Chrisean should tattoo the words Blueface Property across her forehead. Across her forehead. Baby, I nearly threw my phone into the ocean. Property. Like a couch. Like a used PlayStation on Facebook Marketplace. And here is the chilling kicker. I actually think Chrisean is dumb enough to do it. I truly, from the bottom of my scalp, believe she would walk into a tattoo shop tomorrow and let a stranger brand her face with that man's ownership sticker. And the sad thing is, half of y'all watching believe it too. Now, y'all know where I stand. I am the petty queen. I am the tenured dean of the school of petty queen. And I am saying, right here, right now, we need to start a petition, a real petition, with names, with hashtags, with everything, for Jaidyn to press charges. Because let us not forget, please, please, not forget, that private tape did not leak itself. Somebody in that inner circle had access. Somebody in that inner circle had motive. Baby, I am not naming names. I do not have to. Because Chrisean already named herself in a previous live when she admitted, out of her own big, wide, popied mouth, that she sent Jaidyn intimate content of her and Blueface to hurt her feelings. She said that. She confessed that. That is not gossip. That is receipts. So when performance in modern television history. So when a grown man goes on a podcast and tells me the guy who lost that battle just quietly picked his respect back up off the floor, I need him to define respect. Because from where the culture is standing, Kendrick walked away with the belt, the crown, the trophy, the receipts, and the AUX cord. Now, spicy hypothetical, because I cannot resist. What if he simply tossed Not Like Us onto a deluxe edition of GNX? Just casually attached it, the exact same way Drake tacked What Did I Miss on Iceman? Imagine the streaming spike. Imagine the meme cycle. Imagine the shockwave. The industry would fold. Publications would break. Hip-hop internet would need a support group. And he probably won't do it, because he doesn't need to. The receipts are already framed on the wall. But the fact that he could is exactly why the Mallory brothers framework collapses on contact. You cannot demand a comeback record from a man who never left the throne. That's not commentary. That's fan fiction in a suit. Then Rory casually floated the idea that Kendrick Lamar could sit at the #1 rapper spot for 2026. And y'all, I have been screaming this from the mountaintop. That's not a punchline. That's projection with historical backup. He has plenty of runway left to snatch that crown by year's end. Track record says every single time he drops, he takes over the cultural conversation, sometimes for months, even when Drake is dropping directly across from him. So the notion that he cannot dominate the calendar just because 2 podcast guys said the field looks crowded, that's a wet paper argument. Poke it, and it disintegrates. Let me steer y'all into the comments section for a minute, because that's where the culture actually lives and breathes. Over on the DJ Dahi announcement page, one commenter wrote, Kendrick aside, what an incredible collection of talent, you egregious buffoon. That comment might be the funniest read of the entire year, because it perfectly captures how deeply people are trying to shrink his presence on the track list while being physically incapable of looking away from it. Another commenter pointed out, correctly, that the NFR podcast page doesn't have hundreds of suspicious bot accounts flooding the reply section the way certain other pages do. Peak observation. Because let's be real, the same people who spend every waking hour claiming nobody wants to hear about Kendrick are the same people typing his name into every search bar they can find. Big shout out to Hip Hop Clips 36 and Summer's Hours for spotting the pattern. Y'all are doing the Lord's work in that reply section. And here's where it gets worse for the Mallory brothers narrative. Every credible whisperer in the industry is now saying he may not be handing out just one single feature. 2 feature rumors are sitting on the table simultaneously. One is DJ Dahi. The other is Schoolboy Q. And a full-length Kendrick Lamar solo project is quietly circulating in the rumor mill like a shadow you can almost see. So the actual scenario we're staring at is a man potentially dropping one feature, then another feature, then a full solo album, all inside a compressed window that would break the algorithm in half. That is not the resume of a man in decline. That is the choreography of a man quietly reloading. The Schoolboy Q piece isn't a stretch either. Q was literally opening for the final leg of the GNX tour. And anybody who understands how touring actually works knows what happens on those buses. Artists record everywhere. Green rooms, hotel suites, backstage lounges. Somebody in the corner with a laptop, a mic, and a bag of throat lozenges. You'd be shocked how many so-called studio classics were actually laid down at 2 in the morning on somebody's tour bus after the crowd went home. So the idea that Kendrick and Q quietly stacked verses on the road, that's the most reasonable rumor of the week. TD alumni cutting late-night sessions between tour stops. That's how a lot of classics get born. Let me hit y'all with a fair shot moment, because I don't want anyone thinking I refuse to engage the Mallory brothers' actual argument. Here's the closest they got to something honest. One of them said Kendrick might not even drop another album, because why would he? He made generational money. He headlined the Super Bowl. He ran the biggest rap tour ever. He's got nothing left to prove financially. On paper, that logic is clean. But here's what these guys never seem to grasp. This man is not a numbers rapper. He is a lifer. He's the guy who lives in the studio when nothing is being announced. Anybody who's ever been in his orbit will tell you the same thing. The man is always writing, always recording, always experimenting. That's why every album lands like a full statement, because it's the visible tip of a much bigger iceberg of work. Quiet stretches from him have never meant retreat. The quiet has always meant pressure compressing underground. Now let's dig into this GNX reservation the Maliri brothers keep circling, because it's honestly wild. They basically argued that GNX didn't take listeners on a journey the way Good Kid, or Butterfly, or Mr. Morale did. That it was just Kendrick popping out and having fun. First of all, since when is fun a demerit? These same critics never hold anyone else to the concept album standard. They don't demand narrative arcs out of Iceman. They don't demand deep multi-part storytelling out of every fall-off cycle. But when Kendrick Lamar decides to deliver a full-on West Coast homage, a project that unmistakably has a theme, a geography, a mood, and a message, suddenly it's not deep enough. Do y'all see the double standard? The bar for this man is always positioned exactly where he's not currently standing. If he goes conceptual, they call him pretentious. If he goes hard-body West Coast, they call him lightweight. He cannot win by their rules, because the rules were designed to trap him. That's not honest evaluation. That's a stacked deck being dealt with a smile. Then there was the Lupe fiasco tangent, and this one was almost sad to watch. Lupe has been low-key jabbing at Kendrick for years, and this latest wave was essentially him arguing everything except the actual lyricism. Better albums, better team, better catalog. But when it came to holding a syllable-for-syllable way in, that mysteriously fell off the conversation. Here's the truth, though. Being a great songwriter is not about cramming the highest possible syllable count into a bar. It's about crafting a line that lands, that carves itself into the listener's memory, that plays on loop in someone's head at 3 in the morning while they're trying to sleep. Kendrick Lamar has been mass-producing lines like that since Section .80. So this He's Not That Lyrical flag is honestly one of the wildest revisions of hip-hop history ever posted with a straight face. Baby, set the flag on the porch and walk away. Big picture now. The Maliri brothers keep insisting that his catalog is somehow under fresh, escalating scrutiny in a way it never has been before. What scrutiny? Even DJ Academics, one of the most consistently hostile voices toward him in the entire ecosystem, has admitted on camera multiple times that the man has only ever dropped classics. Read that back. The biggest hater in this space concedes the catalog is spotless. So when they try to sell us on some brand new escalating tribunal being built around this discography, I have to ask what universe they're broadcasting from. Because in this one, that discography is triple underlined in every serious hip-hop syllabus on the planet. Here's another crack in their argument. They love to say the big three, Kendrick, Drake, and J. Cole, is a real hierarchy, and that both Drake and J. Cole have gotten their #1 debuts post-beef. So now it's Kendrick's turn to catch up. Y'all, GNX debuted at #1. Full stop. The tour was the highest-grossing rap tour in history. The lead single ran the radio for a calendar year straight. So the claim that he has to chase what those two have already done is a full fantasy, constructed by people who cannot physically bring themselves to say the words, GNX debuted at #1. Say it out loud, one time, and the entire framework collapses like a folding chair. And then, because we live in a truly unserious internet, one of the Maliri brothers hinted that Kendrick might not even release the next album. Like maybe he'd just say forget it and take a family vacation somewhere between Disney World and Six Flags. I need y'all to hear me loud and clear. That is the single most disconnected read of this man's personality ever broadcast into a microphone. Kendrick Lamar is arguably the most competitive artist of his generation. This is a man who cornered another artist so surgically that people are still finding hidden meanings in bar sequences from 2024. That guy doesn't shrug. That guy doesn't fold. That guy sharpens the sword the exact second he thinks nobody is watching. Let me roll through the sharpest reactions circulating around all of this, because the culture is speaking loud and clear. One commenter wrote, Kendrick is the only rapper in modern history who has to prove himself every single time he releases. No other rapper is treated this way. Good Kid was an instant classic. To Pimp a Butterfly is one of the most critically acclaimed hip-hop albums ever made. Damn rewrote the award ceiling. What more is there to prove? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But the album will still be picked apart. And that's fine, because this man has never once flinched under a microscope. Another commenter dropped, Drake fans have been hating on Kendrick for 13 years. 2024 was just when they got hit with the reality check. Sharp. Because that is the pattern. This isn't new hate. This is the same hate, cranked louder, because the scoreboard finally changed on them. Somebody else joked, if he drops 3 straight trash albums, his career is pretty much cooked. Great logic. Except he hasn't dropped one. Not a single one. That's not fanaticism. That's the entire critical consensus. Another more thoughtful commenter pointed out, every other album, he goes commercial, then artsy. It's his time to be artsy again. I'm expecting a Butterfly or Mr. Morale kind of soundscape. Now, that's a fair prediction. But considering PG Lang is rumored to be involved in the 2028 Olympic ceremony, I actually think he might blend both instincts and land closer to a modernized Damn. Mainstream enough to move mountains, cerebral enough to spark essays for a full academic year. I've also seen the take floating around that his next album might have a rock influence, like it's engineered to alienate people. Let me remind everybody in the back, this man has been folding rock, jazz, funk, and free jazz textures into his records since Butterfly. There are literal electric guitar solos on that album. So a genre-bending Kendrick record wouldn't be a plot twist. It would be a Tuesday. And here's a comment I really want to sit with. Somebody wrote, Kendrick has been winning awards at a record-breaking level, and somehow we're supposed to trust two glazers who've been on the OVO payroll since 2024 about his next album. Devastating. Because that is the entire crux of the matter. When your evaluators are compromised, their evaluations are compromised. Consider the source. Consider the season. Consider the timing. Two guys who suddenly discovered a passion for scrutinizing this catalog the exact moment Drake needed a PR rescue mission? That's not journalism. That's assignment work with a ring light. Now let's actually zoom in on what DJ Dahi has said in his own words about Kendrick Lamar, because that alone flattens the whole podcast argument. Dahi has publicly said that Kendrick was one of the very first artists he built a mood board around. A literal vision board of collaborators he needed to work with. He said he saw him performing with Dr. Dre at Coachella and thought immediately, I need to get a beat to this man. That's the origin story of Money Trees. A producer with a dream, a rapper with a vision, two paths crossing at the exact right second. And now, over a decade later, they're doing it all over again, with a fresh sound and a stacked project. Do y'all understand how rare that is in this industry? Producers and artists usually cool off. Chemistry evaporates. Trust erodes. But those two are still cooking after all these years. That's a two-man dynasty most producers only fantasize about. Dahi also said something that hit me right in the chest. He said being part of the good kid, Mad City moment felt like being part of something that would play forever. Not for a season, forever. And I think about that quote every time somebody tries to shrink this catalog. This is a rapper whose songs are still on the charts a decade after release. This is a rapper whose visuals get rewatched at Cannes. This is a rapper whose live performances get analyzed inside university lecture halls. Forever isn't marketing. Forever is what he earned by outworking everyone in the room. I want to Steelman the Maliri brothers one more time, because I'm genuinely trying to be fair here. They said the field is more crowded now, and that even his response records from the battle, the ones on the deluxe, sometimes get downplayed in retrospect. Fine. Not every record is not like us. But even the smaller records from that run are doing arena work right now. Squabble Up still lifts every stadium off the floor. TV Off still gets remixed weekly. Even his quiet moments outperform other rappers' peak moments. That's the standard he set for himself, and it's the exact reason the standard keeps getting weaponized against him. So back to the meta question. Is his next album going to be scrutinized? Absolutely. Is it going to be his most important album? That's a silly framing, because every Kendrick Lamar album has been his most important album at the moment it dropped. That's the whole pattern. He doesn't do throwaways. He doesn't do filler cycles. He doesn't do commercial cash grabs. Every single project is engineered to say something specific about a specific era. So calling the next one his most important is like calling the ocean wet. Yes, it's water. That's the point. Let me leave y'all with the biggest possible frame here, because I want this to land. If he dropped tomorrow, literally tomorrow, brand new album, no rollout, no marketing, no lead single, that record would debut at number 1. It would take the Hot 100 top slot with a track we haven't even heard yet. It would generate a week of essays, a month of think pieces, and a full year of samples, because that's what happens every single time. That's the ceiling nobody else in the current landscape can touch on a moment's notice. So spare me that he has to prove himself narrative. This man has been proving himself since he was 17 years old, dropping mixtapes on street corners. The receipts are pantry deep at this point. And to the Drake stands still typing owl emojis into every single comment thread, the same ones who spent an entire calendar year screaming, why isn't he dropping? Why is he washed? Why is he silent? I need y'all to log the pattern. When Kendrick finally does drop, you are the same people who instantly pivot to, it's mid, it's trash, nobody's listening. You cannot demand silence and then criticize silence at the same time. Pick a lane, because the rest of the culture already picked one, and it's the lane with Luther on loop and Not Like Us on repeat. So here's where I land, y'all. New music from Kendrick Lamar is coming on DJ Dahi's project, potentially on Schoolboy Q's next release, and looming behind all of it, the whispers of a full solo album waiting in the shadows. The Mallory brothers can call it the most important album of his life, if that makes their podcast metrics happy. But the truth is simpler than the framing. Every one of his records is a monument. Every one of his eras is a chapter. And every time somebody tries to write this man off, he shows up with something so undeniable that even the haters have to change their handle before they log back in. Y'all know I don't leave without giving you the group chat prompt of the week, so here it is. Who do you think steals the DJ Dahi album? Dahi himself, Kendrick, Childish Gambino, Vince Staples, or the sneaky pick nobody's watching? Tell me your honest odds on him snatching rapper of 2026 by year's end. And tell me straight up, do you actually believe there is a Kendrick album out there that missed? Just one. Name it. Because I don't think you can. Drop your picks, drop your predictions, drop your loudest hot take in the comment section below, because y'all know I read every single one of them, even the messy ones. If this breakdown hit for you, tap that like button because it truly, genuinely moves this channel forward, and hit subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got a stack of Kendrick coverage on the way, plus a full breakdown of the DJ Dahi tracklist the second it drops, and I do not want y'all missing a single beat of what's rolling out. Big shout out to the members keeping this channel alive, and an extra thank you to everyone who's been sending super thanks. Y'all have been unreasonably generous, and it does not go unnoticed. If you want to send me tips, receipts, or leaks for the next breakdown, my X is pinned in the comments and dropped in the description below. That's honestly the fastest place to catch me. So drop in, tell me the odds, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.